Good afternoon. Welcome back to this afternoon's session. My name is Josef Lensch. I'm the CEO and founder of the Political Tech Summit. I'm very happy to be your chair this afternoon. I'm actually very happy to be here because I've made the mistake of taking a German train from Berlin to Brussels, and it took me 10 hours door to door, and I literally just arrived. So please forgive me if I'm a little bit disorganized, but I try to get structures as quickly as possible. I'm very glad to have a distinguished panel with me here to discuss a very important topic, which is about the question of algorithms, ads and influence, social media data, and the crisis of campaign finance transparency. I don't think I have to elaborate on how AI is transforming also the political sphere, and of course the EU has taken quite a few measures recently to rein in some of the adverse effects and the opaqueness that has ensued in this space. And this is what we want to discuss this afternoon. We have about an hour, and I want to quickly introduce you to the panelists and then jump right in. Of course, you also have some room and space then to ask questions and contribute your thoughts. To my left, there's Alberto Rabakin. A warm welcome. He's a Deputy Head of Unit, Media Convergence and Social Media Directorate General for Communications Networks, Content and Technology at the European Commission. Good afternoon, Alberto.
Good afternoon.
I'll ask him to kick us off in a minute, but before that, let me introduce the other panelists. To my very right, there's Lina Petronienė. She's a chairperson of the Central Electoral Commission of the Republic of Lithuania. Also, a warm welcome to you. Next to her is Septimius Parvu. He's an election programs coordinator and has done a lot of research into this space that we're talking about. Very much looking forward to your thoughts. Welcome, Septimius. And finally, we have Barbara Juan Stonestreet. She will be the respondent, and she will have the conclusion. She's a political finance expert, and a warm welcome to you, Barbara. All right, let's jump right in. Alberto, I already mentioned that the EU, of course, has tabled and implemented quite a few regulations recently, the DSA, the TTPA. So what are those regulations? What are those projects that have been implemented to protect the civil discourse? I give you 7 minutes max to kick us off, and then I will interrupt you because I want everyone to have the chance to speak their mind. Septimius, I will then ask you to comment on what Alberto has opened. Please, Alberto, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me here for this event. It's really a pleasure to talk about this topic because it's certainly a very hot topic. We can say that we have seen also the headlines in the newspaper, and it is a concern also for the European citizen. More than 38% of Europeans think that, the false and misleading information is the most serious threat to democracy, ranking first in a Eurobarometer of 1.5 years ago. And you mentioned the role of AI, and we have seen how the digital online ecosystem has changed the way the political debate is develops, and therefore we have to cater for all these changes and for the anxiety of the Europeans also regarding the potential disruption that malicious use of social media platform can bring. And in this regard, I think everybody would acknowledge that the EU has the most advanced regulatory framework, starting from the DSA, I will talk about it, the DMA, the AI Act, the TTPA, about transparency of political advertising. So there is a lot there. it's all new, and we should acknowledge that. So the legislation is there, but the implementation is ongoing. And we have to face this. And we also have to acknowledge that is a subject that should handle with care, because there are a lot of, a lot of freedoms that could be, damaged if we don't properly implement these tools. So, but of course, we acknowledge that we need to act fast in order to limit the impact. The DSA is, of course, the main tool that we have at the moment. For the first time, platforms are responsible not only for the illegal content that is present in their services, that should be taken down, but they are also responsible, to a certain extent, about harmful content that is placed on their services. They are not responsible on the content, but on the functioning of their platform that could, provide fuel the malicious user to spread this type of content. So this is important. That's why they have to put in place a risk management framework in order to mitigate the risk related to harmful content, which also cover risk related to civic discourse and electoral process. And we are here discussing about that today. And of course, the Commission has also issued DSA guidelines regarding election. And, and these guidelines give indication on how platform could deal with such risk during elections. And so they have, for instance, these guidelines indicate that they should provide more contextual information when certain type of information has been fact-checked. They should demonetize this information. They should also take measures to limit the distribution of AI-generated content. Moreover, also the DSA foresee that ahead of national election, the digital service coordinator in member state can ask for roundtables on election involving VLOPSIS and civil society organization in order, to set, to make sure that everybody is on the same page ahead of the election and to make sure that we have in place the right countermeasure to avoid malicious actors to interfere with the electoral process. As a part of the DSA, we have a code of conduct on this information, which has been developed ahead of the adoption of the DSA and is now being integrated in the DSA as a code of conduct. So is foreseen to be a possible way for platform to mitigate the risk related to disinformation. So the code has 44 commitments that look in different areas like demonetization, transparency of political ads, support to research, support to fact-checkers, so the implementation of the code is a way that platform, on a voluntary basis, can decide to take on board to address their obligation under the DSA. And I wanted to mention something that is very specific to the electoral process, that is part of the rapid response of the code, which is the rapid response system. One of the commitments of the code foresee the development, the design, and the implementation of a rapid response system that is basically a cooperation mechanism between signatories of the code. I have to say that among the signatories of the code, we have very large online platforms that are not yet very large online platforms, and we have a lot of fact-checking organizations, CSO organizations, and also other type of organizations that are relevant in the context of this information. So they have agreed on a mechanism to exchange information during the election, ahead of the election, in order to make sure that platforms have a proper view on potentially dangerous behaviors that could, impact the electoral process. So this is something I think that has proven to be very effective and useful during ahead of the European election and also during a national election in the past months.
7 minutes.
7 minutes already? Okay, last point is about support to the importance to support a multidisciplinary community in order to make sure that there is a bottom-up also action regarding to fight and to fight disinformation and ensure integrity of the information system. And this is the European Digital Media Observatory. So since 2020, we have funded with about 40 million euros this observatory, which is composed now of 15 apps, cover the entire EU, including Ukraine and Moldova now. And they really are active on the ground with local organizations in detecting and analyzing and exposing disinformation. They play also a very important role within the rapid response system because they coordinate a little bit the efforts of the civil society. So I will stop here, and of course, maybe if there is time, then we can also see how we will intend to go forward also with the European Democracy Shield. I think it's also relevant in this context.
Great, thank you, Alberto. Just one quick question. One of the more recent acts, of course, was the TTPA. Now we've had several discussions over the last months after, of course, Meta, Google, and others pulled out paid political ads. So, as you know, they will be stopping. Now there has been some talk since then that there may be a little bit of an adaptation of the TTPA. Can you enlighten us on that? Do you know anything about that? Will it be implemented as it is, or will there be some? You're smiling, so there might be some.
No, I'm smiling because I know the challenge that they have, the colleagues from DigiJust have in front of them. I'm not aware of possible changes to the regulation. What I wanted to say is certainly that platform can, of course, decide not to serve political ads in Europe, but the obligation remains for them to make sure that the ads that are posted online are not political ads. So this is, in my opinion, something that an obligation that is in place for them, and they will be obliged to ensure that if they decide not to serve political ads, they are able to enforce their term of service.
All right, perhaps we can revisit this later in the discussion. I will open up the floor after the first round, so already get prepared. But if I can stay on that point for a moment, Septimius, you, of course, have done a lot of research. The upcoming elections in Moldova have already been mentioned. Of course, the Czech Republic is also having an election soon. So Alberto said it's all new, but my question is it all good? Is it all fit for purpose? What's your take on that from a researcher's perspective in the field? 7 minutes.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think I will start with the last part of the topic of the discussion, which is a little bit more negative. First of all, just to connect to what was said earlier, actually we are part of the latest hub, which was funded, which is called FACT. And my colleagues are working on monitoring in Moldova in the online environment, which seems to be quite a challenge. But I will get back to it. But if you're interested in looking a little bit in how the informational space looks now in Moldova, I would recommend to read our short analysis on mostly on TikTok, because that became the main instrument. I would like just to point out a few things which we've seen from, let's say, the past 2 years from the Romanian and the Moldovan elections. Romania was mentioned a few times. I always when I enter into a room and we have this topic. In Romania it happened this and that. Well, it did, and I think we're probably not the first, but we're probably the first serious victim, probably, of this. Firstly, of lack of action, I would say. What we have seen is firstly, I would say, a decrease in transparency of political finance. You know, we were used with the classical type of financing with the, I don't know, having some prints, having some online, some TV, but for us at least it was the first time when we have seen how you can cheat the system. And we have seen in very many ways, including crypto payments in crypto. We have seen of the platform payments, and I think this also connects very well to what we were saying earlier about in the previous panel about the issue with TikTok, because basically officially they do not support political advertising, but in fact you have all these platforms which are somehow engaging with TikTokers to do political advertising, and also you have the covert campaigns with I don't know, plant lovers who the next day start doing very rough political campaigning. So I think that's a huge gap. Also, I think, and by the way, what's very interesting now, and I think here I would like to congratulate journalists, which I think in many cases did more than our authorities, at least in Romania. But we have seen recently, at least in some Moldovan investigations, which were very recent, that there were some of those who work now for Moldova work for Georgescu, which was our failed candidate last year. So I think it shows you a little bit the dimension, you know, and the denial of the candidate that he's not supported by external forces. And now here we speak about Russia. So I think it connects very well to see that, you know, it's not unique, it's not targeted, but it's a bigger picture. What we also see, it's one of the major issue, actually, I think it's the issue of inauthentic coordinated behaviors. Because I think one of the some of our major discoveries were related to this behavior. Now in Moldova it happens the same as we had in 2024, and I think what's worse, in 2025 when you had the repeated elections, our main politicians adopted Georgescu's behavior instead of condemning it. I mean, our prime minister was doing "Get Ready with Me" movies in the morning on TikTok. So I think this is one of the issues, and on one side we have the unclear definition on what inauthentic behavior is, but we also see a lack of actions from the platforms to do something with it. There was just a declaration of the head of police in Moldova, who was sending complaints to TikTok on this kind of behavior, and 85% of the content was not removed. We had the same issue in Romania. There were campaigns which were so clearly unnatural, accounts which were coordinated, which were, I don't know, were not real, and they are still there, by the way, almost 1 year after. So I think this is one of the main issues. We are also struggling a lot with data, and I think that was mentioned earlier, because what we do is mostly based, for example, on TikTok, the analysis is based on tags, or we don't have access to real data. So what we see, there are pieces. We try to connect pieces, but you don't know how much is the big picture and how bad it affects actually the process. And I think what we've seen here, also last year in Romania, but also what we see here in Moldova, we are not talking about campaigns in the end. I mean, because this is not, you know, the classical elections when somebody comes to expose the view of the party. I think this is a fight on who can impose more stronger. We see connections with, I don't know, organized criminal groups who are doing campaigning. So I think we kind of lost the fundament of elections, and basically on one side there are institutions who are struggling to stop this behavior, if there are, and in Romania we were quite critical because we still don't have a report about last year, for example. If you ask me if I can give you a complete answer or what happened in 2024, well, I don't have one. The Prosecutor General just revealed after 1 year almost some issues which were already in the media in our reports from last year. So I think this also shows a little bit the lack of action of some of the institutions at national level. I don't know if I have more time, but
1 minute.
Okay, so maybe I will end with the issue of TTPA. I think on one side we already had the issue of TikTok, which said they don't accept political advertising, but in fact the platform is doing it without any kind of transparency. So we don't even know the dimension of the payments, and legal or illegal, because as I was saying, now in the recent investigations there are quite a lot of evidence of payments, in Moldova at least from Russia, payments through crypto, which are not very easily traceable, and that's it. But also I think the fact that we have Google and Meta withdrawing from the TTPA, I think it leaves a fundamental mechanism without strengths. I'm not saying that it won't be political advertising, probably it will be, but it will not be transparent and it will not be easy to mark. So basically for us as I don't know, CSOs, what we can do, of course, is bring information to the public, to the institution. We can do complaints. I mean, for us, probably last year was the year with most complaints in our history in terms of electoral complaints. I think it leaves the playing field with huge issues. So
thank you. So let me challenge you. So would you say that now the TTPA, for example, and DSA, DMA, that they have improved conditions, or have they actually the unintended consequence of making the playing field more opaque than it was before, because now ads are going through different channels and there more influencers get a more important role and so on. So has it improved things or has it complicated things more?
Well, I think we should separate them. I wouldn't put them in the same bucket. I think DSA moved a lot of things forward, and I think there was an instrument which helped a lot, including in the communication with the platforms, because during this entire period it facilitated the communication. What they do is the second part. I mean, and I think as we saw in the first part of the discussion, there are limited actions even the Commission can do or not. We have seen the positions in the morning. On the other side, the TTPA, I think Romania probably was the first country to implement a prototype, because during these elections in May, we kind of adopted some parts which were not already into force. It was a failure, if you ask me. Because why I think it failed in Romania is that authorities focused on marking everything, don't leave anything without a marking, but they didn't look at the big picture, this authentic behavior. Just to give you a number, there were 50,000 complaints on markings of political advertising. 30,000 were closed because they didn't have the capacity to administer them. But this was just a peak. I mean, TTPA should enter into force in October, so we'll see what happens afterwards. But I mean, if you have the main players out, I think it's a self-explanatory conclusions, maybe.
Thanks, Septimius. Lina, you are the chair of the Electoral Commission of not just any country, but of Lithuania. And of course, the Baltics are very much at the forefront of many of the issues that we're talking about in terms of financing, also dark funding. So what's your take from Lithuania, and also looking at the regulations that we talked about? Have they improved things or have they actually complicated things for you?
I think it improves because, we have quite strict financing system in Lithuania, quite strict regulation, and I think it improved because we can follow the money. It will be easier for us.
So you say they have improved because it will allow you to follow the money? In what sense?
Yeah, we hope so. We hope so because we are using ads library since 2019. We use reports of ads libraries and we export reports before campaign, after campaign. We process this data and we use it for cross-checking with financial reports, and it helps us to find hidden expenditure, sometimes illegal financing. And I hope, but of course we have problems with media, with social media which don't have ad libraries, like TikTok, and we have recommendation for people working in state institutions not to use TikTok, and it limits the monitoring of political advertising in TikTok. And we rely on society. Election commissions receives a lot of complaints or notifications about political advertising in TikTok, but we understand that it is only the part of you, and we cannot be sure that we don't have such problem like in Romania. Okay, we didn't have any scandals like this, but you never know.
Thank you. Can you give us some insights into the main challenges that you face in monitoring campaign finance and transparency?
Yes, the main challenges are social media, because all domestic media have to submit their prices to declare their advertising they sell, so we can check the reports very easy, and if we find some disagreements, we can ask for them the information, who paid the communication is very easy. And when we speak about social media with international companies, we don't have such a good relation. They don't provide us all information. We have to look for it in ad libraries, and sometimes it needs more human resources to analyze this information and to have some conclusions.
You spoke about ad libraries. What other improvements do you think would be needed, and perhaps also what can other countries learn from Lithuania?
I think with social media we have a problem that they give cost in intervals, and in Lithuania is quite a small country. These intervals are too wide for us, and sometimes it's quite complicated because there is a difference if it is €2 or €100. So we have these differences, and also for ads in social media, we have much more documents like for normal advertising because of quite small cost of it. And it is difficult to match political ads mentioned in invoices, because we have invoices, and with ads in libraries, because very similar libraries, ads are paid several times in different periods, and sometimes it's quite complicated to check if it is the same advertising, and maybe someone else paid for very similar advertising.
Thanks very much. At this point, I would open the mic, first of all, and then open the floor to the audience. And I already have some hands up. I think the two quickest ones were from you two. Would you please state your name, your organization, and your question?
My name is Olga Ivazovska. I'm the head of board Civil Network Opora, Ukraine. So my question is why we are speaking about the same topic with the same arguments and the same issues event by event. Because we have a hope that those media, social media, who have owners, who are close to authoritarian regimes, will be so nice that they will accept EU rules or European rules as the main basic framework for electoral campaigning or social life and so on and so forth. So Telegram was developed by Russians, and Telegram has direct connection with KGB. Telegram has more than 1 billion users already, and not only in post-Soviet Union so-called region, but in Europe too. TikTok was developed by China, and Meta, Google, and so on and so forth, just business from US. So it means that they are not so close to that values which were presented by them during another period or another political decade under another administration in Washington. So my question is very direct. If we can help them to be better, or following by rules, because those small countries, which are small markets for them, are not caring at all by that owners, maybe we need to develop something in Europe which will be competitive comparably to TikTok, Telegram, and so on and so forth, who are following good rules, and at the end we will have diversity. And that's it.
Shouldn't we develop European social media, social infrastructure?
Yeah, and why we still believe that China and Russia will be better?
Thank you very much. I'll take on board another question, and I'm sure make sure it will be answered. Please.
Hi, I'm Garvin Walsh. I'm here representing Unhacked Democracy, but I'm actually asking this question in a different capacity, which is my tech startup, which is this might as well be the first place to unveil it, because we are officially in stealth mode. But we are building a European-based social media network for broadsheet content, and partly to do exactly that. Now, we will be based somewhere between London and Sofia, when we will be building more transparent algorithms to get good quality content to people. I'll go sidestep the question of, whether this will actually help in election campaigns or not, because I also wanted to ask about financing. And because I've spent quite a bit of time thinking about how recommendation algorithms should work for the kind of product we're building, one of the big, I think there's two major things going on here. One is the positive feedback loops that are built in almost in the structure of any social network. Even if you don't amplify anything, large accounts promote each other by some, mathematical law to a much greater extent than smaller accounts do, which means you have a huge incentive for coordinated inauthentic behavior to work. Because if you get 500 people to promote something, the networks will notice it. Even if they don't actually do any other promotion and they just have chronological feeds, like Blue Sky does, that will still get noticed by more people because of the volume. You have to apply very heavy suppression for that effect not to take place. So I don't think we can stop coordinated inauthentic behavior from happening. I think the best we can do is to force it out into the open and require it to be declared as a normal election expense. So there's advertising, the platforms can look at that, that's fine. But there are people going around organizing, if you pay an influencer, the social networks won't know that influencer is being paid, they'll only know it's going to be there. That needs to be declarable as an election expense. What the social media platforms can be made to do is simply to provide an API that allows electoral committees and electoral authorities to investigate this kind of stuff in bulk. And that API needs to be transparent, it needs to supply the videos, needs to be supplied with sufficient bandwidth to allow them to do that.
Gavin, what's the question?
Yeah, but the question is, though, is this new? Because Sarkozy has an ankle bracelet around because he got illegal funding for his presidential election campaign in France about 10 or 15 years ago. Helmut Kohl fell down because someone walked into his office with 2 suitcases full of cash. Parties will always look for illegal ways to fund their campaigns, or ways that exceed expenses. And so my question is this really new, or is it just the evolution of technology for traditional uses of political activity?
Can we prevent it with APIs potentially? I'll take a third question and then we'll go through the list, please.
Yeah, thanks. I'm Armin Rabic from Election Watch EU. My question is a repetitive question from the first panel. One is the question to the panelists: how do you assess the withdrawal from the TTPA by Meta and Google, and how do you assess it? What kind of impact will it have? Is it something good? Is it something bad? And what is the mitigating action from civil society side and from EU side? Thanks.
Thank you. So the first question related to basically digital sovereignty. So can't we build our own infrastructure? It's not necessarily a new discussion, but of course a very, very important question. The second question was about the declaration of expenses and APIs potentially forcing platforms to be auditable. And the third one, what will be the consequence of the withdrawal from Google, Meta and the others of the TTPA? Who wants to take on what? Septimius, you...
Because you're looking at me, I feel a pressure.
All right, let's start from there. Septimius.
I answered to the last one, so I don't think it's a good thing. Regarding the second one, I mean, nobody says that corruption is new. I mean, it's just new ways of, new ways of funding campaigns, and in the end. I don't think it's illegal to finance, I don't know, boosting campaigns. If you declare it, if you have bills, if you do it by the book, if you go to the oversight body or depending on the institution in each country, I don't think that's an issue. But in the end, I think it's an issue because campaigns become a little bit of a battle of bots. I mean, what do we do? It's just who has more money, who knows better how to program. But I think most of the things I was talking about earlier, it's not behavior which is generated by legal means, and I think to better understand what's behind the platforms, yeah, I do think that more access to data is needed, but good luck. I mean, I don't think that's a new discussion. I think there was a lot of pressure. There's also an interesting case in Germany where there was a legal action against X to provide data. So. But I think there is quite a high resistance to provide more data. And even Facebook, which was at one point probably the best example in this field, I think it went backwards and provides less data. So I think that would provide at least more information. And also what I think, and maybe I will end here, but what I think is... also regarding, apart from the EU level, but I think it's also important what institutions do at national level. And in many countries, I don't think it's very clear who's doing what. I think you have, I don't know, secret services who are protecting the constitution, you have police, you have all these kind of different institutions, but I think there's very little transparency even here. So I think even for citizens, it's hard to understand if somebody is doing something or is trying to stop what's happening. So I will also, I mean, at least in Romania, we do ask this to better understand if somebody is doing something because there are a lot of money, there are a lot of people involved, but it's not very clear what's the institutional framework,
Thank you. Lina, do we want to comment on? You're fine? Alberto, I guess I guess I know what you think about the withdrawal from Meta and Google from the TTPA. Am I right?
Well, I don't know. Sorry. I don't know what to say. It's their decision. It's a commercial decision to withdraw. As I said before, they can withdraw. It's their rights. On the impact, certainly online advertisement, at least in the previous election, is not used as it is used in the US, in Europe. If you look at the amount or the overall amount, it's much less in Europe. At the same time, again, I think the obligation for them remains. So if they have, if there are political ads running through their services, they will have to comply with the transparency obligation imposed by the Act. So we will see how this will develop. Of course, we are not yet there. I wanted also to connect to the two questions about API and a new European social media, which hopefully you will be successful. I really hope so. But there were recent studies that even with a very simple algorithm that behind social media, it was shown how this polarization and these let's say side effects are inevitable. So I think we have to spend efforts in also educating everybody on how this new digital ecosystem works, so that everybody is aware of what they encounter online. And to conclude also regarding transparency, I fully agree that, we have to learn more about the phenomenon. We have to be able to detect campaign, malicious disinformation campaign, attack to the integrity of the online information system. We have to be fast in that. And this is also what somehow was announced by the president in the last week, Soteo. She referred to the need to increase the capacity to monitor, to detect and monitor the manipulation campaigns. So on this, I think we will have also a focus in the upcoming Democracy Shield.
Thank you. Before I hand over to Barbara for the concluding remarks, I would have the time for perhaps one or two more quick questions, comments, thoughts from the audience. Sorry. Thank you very much. Please. Cheers.
Yeah, I thought you had forgotten about this side. Thank you very much. My name is Henry Muguzi. I come from the African Election Observers Network. So in Africa, when it comes to campaign finance, we are indeed at crisis levels, because money does not just talk, it actually shouts. And the problem is that I think the big elephant in the room is that when it comes to campaign finance, we do not have universally acceptable standards. So, and in the absence of these, it's very difficult to hold a country, particular country, accountable to these standards. So you look at Africa, we have nothing. You look at Europe, you don't have any gold standard, universal acceptable standard against which you can hold all European countries, member states accountable too. And therefore, if Europe is leading globally with the regulations such as AI Act, DSA, and TTPA and others, can it then also be the one to take lead in establishing these internationally acceptable standards of campaign finance, transparency, and accountable? The second question goes to, I think, Ms. Lina. Yeah, you manage an electoral management body. In many of those of our countries, the electoral management bodies have also been charged with the responsibility of regulating campaign finance. In your view, is this too much a task to ask in addition to organizing and conducting elections? Would it be a function best placed in an EMB, or should it be better if another different institution was charged with that responsibility? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We would have had a discussant from the African continent here. Unfortunately, couldn't make it. So thank you very much for your intervention. Lina, do you want to say something to the question?
Yes, quite short. Yes, in Lithuania, the Central Electoral Commission is responsible for oversight over financing of political parties and campaigns. And I think every 5 years we have a new discussion. Maybe Special State Investigation Service should be responsible for this, but I think it's better, in our case, it's better when it is an election management body, because half of it is members from political parties, half from institutions, lawyers, and so on. And it helps in to have transparent decisions and not to have influence by one political party. And I think it's safer in our country. And if Special Investigation Service or some other institution with a more legal background would be responsible for oversight, so political parties would be like insuspicious every time, but the political party is good for our political system, for democracy, so we cannot treat them as in suspicion every time.
Thank you very much. And very quickly to the both gentlemen on the stage, should Europe take the global lead in helping to address some of those issues?
Well, I think, as we were discussing earlier, I think the DSA is a very good start, and I think for the countries which do not have this kind of mechanism, it's a challenge. Just to also to connect to your previous question, yeah, I think it does make quite a difference. But probably in many other countries will be difficult to impose such regulations. I mean, even looking how TTPA and DSA were developed at the European level, it was quite a long path. But I think these kind of regulations do help in providing more clarity.
Thank you. With that, I would hand over to Barbara for the concluding remarks. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Many thanks to all the speakers, Lina, Septimius, and Alberto, for your thoughtful presentations, and to Joseph, for guiding such a rich discussion. You've each brought important perspectives that show just how urgent and complex ensuring transparency in online political advertising has become. At the heart of campaign finance transparency lies a simple principle. Voters should know who is reaching out to them, who is trying to influence their votes, and how much money is being spent to do so. Yet, modern campaigns often operate in ways that make this information hard to uncover, creating real challenges for transparency and accountability. One message comes through really clearly. Digital campaigning is no longer just a tool. It shapes the very core of modern elections. Algorithms, AI, and online advertising have transformed how influence works, from micro-targeting voters to obscuring sources of funding to enabling new and often opaque actors. We talked about third parties, we talked about influencers, but also foreign entities. As discussed during the previous session, the EU has established a really strong digital regulatory framework, a performant toolbox, as Rasto put it, including the AI Act, the Digital Services Act, and the Transparency and Targeting of Political Advertising Regulation, the TTPA, placing the EU at the forefront globally. Alberto just talked about the broad set of tools, including regulations, guidelines, code of conducts, and stakeholder cooperations that the EU has put in place to protect information integrity, particularly during elections. Unfortunately, even this ambitious framework faces familiar challenges: inconsistent implementation, difficulties with cross-border coordination, and the fast pace of evolving social media platform policies and campaign practices. From an oversight perspective, the basic questions remain: who paid? How much was spent? Was it reported? In practice, divergent platform policies, unregulated intermediaries, and limited data access make these questions extremely hard to answer. Lina spoke about the systemic challenges regulators, election management bodies face in keeping pace with digital campaign practices. In particular, she described the practical difficulties election commissions, political finance oversight bodies encounter when monitoring political ads on social media, especially the limit of tools like ad libraries for campaign finance oversight. And tellingly, both Meta and Google will suspend political ads this October, most likely not out of principle, but because the regulatory environment has become so complex that they prefer to step away rather than risk non-compliance. Paid advertising is only part of the story. Coordinated inauthentic behavior, fake accounts, bots, hidden networks, continues to distort the political playing field. As Septimius emphasized, political actors, but also non-contestant campaigners, third parties, are increasingly using backdoors such as of platform payments or crypto contributions, channels that are almost impossible to trace. Data gaps mean we only see fragments of the big picture. And platforms' limited action to identify and or remove inauthentic behavior, including foreign interference, leaves major vulnerabilities. The Romanian example shows that without coordinated strategic oversight, even substantial efforts to monitor political advertising may miss the broader patterns of unregulated activity. Adding to these challenges, the rise of AI-generated content and the lack of effective mechanisms to mark or remove it when illegal creates further avenues for manipulation. So the question is, where does that leave us? We have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to adapt, to stay strategic, not just reactive, to act collectively. Ensuring campaign finance transparency and safeguarding electoral integrity requires all actors, regulators, election management bodies, platforms, observers, big tech, journalists, and the civil society to work together. Observers play a vital role, but their impact depends on strong laws, effective regulators, and accountable platforms. With smart technology, proactive oversight, and a shared commitment to accountability, we can strengthen campaign finance transparency and protect the integrity of electoral processes. Thank you all for your attention, and I look forward to continuing these discussions.
Thanks, Barbara. Thanks, everyone.